Picture this. The year is 1250, and the chill of early dawn clings to the walls of Warwick Castle like a ghost that never leaves. You rise from your straw-filled pallet long before the sun dares to touch the horizon. The air is cold, damp, and heavy with the smell of smoke and wet stone. Somewhere far above, the castle bells toll a hollow, echoing sound that rolls through the corridors like the groan of something alive. You pull your woolen cloak tighter, rough and scratchy against your skin. The great hall above you still sleeps, but the castle itself, this living fortress of cold limestone and thick oak, never truly rests. In the dark, the walls seem to breathe. They creak, sigh, and shift with the night's frost. You hear footsteps from the corridor beyond, the shuffle of another servant. And for a moment, you imagine what it would be like to sleep in the warmth of a noble chamber. But warmth is for the few. For most within these walls, life is endured, not lived. And as dawn breaks over the battlements, you realize that the castle, majestic as it appears from the fields below, less a home and more a prison of duty, smoke, and silence. If you enjoy discovering forgotten worlds, tap like and tell me where you're listening from. You'll soon learn that life inside a medieval castle was no fairy tale. You'll walk through its narrow stairwells, breathe its smoky air, and feel the ache of its daily labor. You'll see how its beauty hides misery, how stone meant to protect also confined. You'll witness how servants, nobles, and knights, all bound by rank, shared the same cold wind, though never the same life. As the first light bleeds through narrow slits of the arrow loops, you make your way toward the lower courtyard. The floor beneath you is uneven, stones worn smooth by centuries of boots and bare feet. The kitchen servants are already at work hauling firewood, stoking the great hearth, and sharpening knives that will soon carve salted meat tough as leather. The air burns with the scent of smoke and tallow. You move quickly, because lateness is a sin in a place ruled by order and hierarchy. Castles, for all their grandeur, were not built for comfort. The thick walls trap the cold, the windows are small to keep out invaders, and sunlight rarely reaches the heart of the keep. You can see your breath in the air, even in midsummer. The nobles above may sleep beneath firs, but their chambers too are cold and damp. Mice scurry through the rushes strewn across the floor, and fleas breed in the straw mattresses of both lords and laborers alike. You think of the moat outside, stagnant and black, not the shimmering water of legend, but a cesspool where refuse and waste drift together. The castle smells of iron, earth, and smoke, with a faint sweetness of decay. Yet, to live here is to live within power itself, and that power demands sacrifice. In the great hall, the fire is being rekindled. You join the others to sweep the rushes and scatter new herbsweet, marjoram, and lavender to mask the stench. This hall is the castle's heart. Feasts, councils, justice, all flow through here. But when it is empty, it feels haunted. The tapestries hang heavy, their colors dulled by soot. The high table, where the lord and lady dine, gleams faintly in the dimness. Every detail whispers hierarchy. The noble sits closest to the hearth, the servants farthest from it, and those who displease him well, they're sent to the dungeons below, where even the air feels punished. The lord of this castle rules not only by sword, but by ceremony. You see it each morning when he descends from his solar chamber reserved for the family dressed in fur-lined robes. He does not walk. He arrives. His presence silences the room. His wife follows, pale and wrapped in linen, her face powdered to hide illness and exhaustion. They are symbols, more than people, embodiments of order in a world ruled by divine hierarchy. Servants like you bow until your neck aches. You speak only when spoken to. You do not meet the Lord's eyes. Every gesture, every step is measured. And yet, for all his authority, even your master is a prisoner of these walls. Nobility means surveillance. The castle watches, everyone its narrow passageways, its locked chambers, its thick doors keeping secrets of power and betrayal. Later in the morning, you climb the spiral staircase that winds like a serpent through the keep. The air grows colder with each step. From a high window slit, you glimpse the countryside. Grey clouds drifting over endless fields, peasants laboring in the distance. They live beyond the walls, but their lives are bound to this place, to the taxes, to the harvest demanded by the Lord. You feel the same invisible chain, though yours is made of duty rather than soil. In the kitchens below, women grind grain with weary arms, turning millstones hour after hour. The cook barks orders, his hands red and blistered. You pass by the scullery, where children scrub pots blackened with soot. Their faces are smudged, their laughter rare. Yet, amidst the hardship, there's rhythm and unspoken understanding that everyone, from the lowest servant to the nobleman himself, exists to keep the machine turning. When the midday meal begins, you serve from the lower end of the hall. Nobles eat from trenchers flat, pieces of stale bread, while you wait silently in the shadows. They feast on venison, pottage, and ale. You, when allowed, will later eat what's left, crusts, bones, or watery broth. The noise of their talk fills the chamber. Politics, alliances, marriages. It's a world far removed from yours, yet both worlds share the same roof, the same breath of cold air seeping from the stones. Outside, the castle courtyard rings with the sound of blacksmiths. Iron meets iron, sparks flying like fireflies in the grey daylight. Armor must be mended, gates secured, horses shod. Every clang reminds you that this place was built for war. Every wall, every tower, every parapet stands as a monument to fear. As the day fades, the castle changes. Shadows lengthen, and torches crackle to life. You feel the walls closing in, again the same ancient chill returning. The lord and lady withdraw to their chambers, the servants to their corners, and the silence grows thick. Somewhere in the dark corridors, a whisper echoes, perhaps just the wind, perhaps memory itself. But what you don't yet know is that the castle's greatest enemy isn't the armies beyond its walls, it's the life within them. You wake before dawn again, though the sun has not yet dared to pierce the mist outside. The castle sleeps, but its silence is not peaceful, it's heavy, like a cathedral of ghosts. The rushes beneath your feet are damp, the smell of smoke from last night's fire still clinging to your hair and clothes. Somewhere below, the kitchen fires sputter to life. The day will begin, as it always does, with duty. In a castle like this, every moment is measured by labor. The walls around you are colder than yesterday. You touch the stone as you pass, and moisture beads beneath your fingertips. Each block was laid by hands long dead, and yet they still dictate your every movement. In these walls lies the weight of centuries' war, hunger, birth, death, and it presses down on everyone who calls the castle home. As you climb toward the battlements, the air grows sharper. From above, you can see the mist rolling over the moat, turning the water into a mirror of ash. The guards are already at their posts, wrapped in cloaks stiff with frost. They shift their feet to keep warm, gripping spears that feel like ice. You nod to one as you pass, but words are few appear. The cold steals breath, and conversation is considered weakness. You pause at the parapet, watching the distant fields stretch into grey emptiness. The peasants are already working, their figures tiny specks in the fog. Their world is one of soil and sweat, yours of smoke and stone, but both are cages of survival. In truth, life in the castle isn't grander than life beyond the walls. It's simply harder in different ways. The peasants bow to the weather. You bow to the will of men. By mid-morning, the castle begins to stir. Servants scurry through corridors, carrying buckets, platters, bolts of linen. The chapel bell tolls for morning prayer, its echo threading through the air like a summons from heaven. Everyone must attend, from stable boys to noble women. Faith is not a choice. It's a law that governs breath itself. Inside the chapel, The air is thick with incense. You kneel on cold stone beside others, eyes downcast. Candles flicker against walls painted with fading saints. The priest-esque voice drones in Latin, a language you do not understand, but must still repeat in murmured obedience. You smell wax, sweat, and wet wool. Outside these walls, the world may change, but in here, time is trapped. It is always morning in a medieval castle, always penance before labor. When the prayers end, you return to your duties. You carry water up narrow stairways, the pail's handle biting into your palms. The Lord's wife, pale and distant, sits in her sola near the window, her hands folded over a piece of embroidery. Her fingers tremble. Even she, wrapped in velvet and fur, is prisoner to the rhythms of this place. Her beauty is both armor and chain. You bow low, avoiding her gaze, and pour water into the silver basin for her washing. It's said that noble women spent most of their days waiting for letters, for husbands at war, for childbirth, for death. And within these cold walls, time stretches endlessly. The sound of the loom in the corner, the whisper of servants, the sigh of the wind through the slit windows all merge into a single, endless hum of patience. You descend again into the lower chambers, where the air thickens with smoke. In the kitchens, the great fire roars. The cooks prepare salted pork, grain porridge, and bread so hard it could break a tooth. There is no variety here, only the repetition of survival. And in summer, the stench is unbearable. The heat, the flies, the reek of meat hung too long. Disease often starts here, carried by rats that feast on crumbs fallen beneath the tables. The castle physician walks through the hall later that day, his robe lined with small pouches of herbs. He smells of vinegar and rosemary, his fingers stained from crushed plants. His cures are part science, part superstition, leeches for fever, lavender for plague, prayers for everything else. You've seen him bleed men pale for balance of humors, as he calls it. The weak rarely recover, but the priest blesses them all the same, whispering comfort as their breath fades into the cold air. At dusk, a storm gathers. Wind howls through the arrow slits, rattling shutters and extinguishing torches. The courtyard floods with rain, and you hurry to cover the barrels and tools. The castle becomes a fortress again, sealing itself against the night. The sound of thunder rolls through the halls like war drums, and for a moment, you imagine what it must have been like centuries ago when invaders surrounded these same walls. The fear, the hunger, the waiting. Perhaps nothing has changed. The castle has always been waiting for war, for famine, for its own ruin. Later, you return to your corner beneath the stairs, your straw bed damp from the leaks above. The stone seeps cold into your bones. You wrap your cloak tighter, listening to the thunder fade. A single candle burns beside you, its flame trembling with every draught. In its light, you see the carvings etched into the wall, initials of servants long gone, names forgotten. They too once lived, worked, and dreamed within these walls. You close your eyes and hear the castle breathe again. Every groan of timber, every whisper of wind feels like a voice, one that tells you this place does not belong to you, or to the Lord, or to any living soul. It belongs only to time, and time is the cruelest master of all. But the castle's power isn't just in its walls. It's in the people who must obey it, day after day, until even their thoughts bend to its rhythm. Morning comes slowly, bleeding grey light into the corridors. You wake to the sound of footsteps echoing on stone, measured, deliberate, like the beat of an unending drum. Life in the castle follows a rhythm older than memory. There are no clocks here, only bells and habit. Every soul has a place, and every place has a purpose. You, the unseen, move within the spaces between servant to power, witness to silence. The castle hierarchy is as rigid as the stone that holds it together. Above you stand the nobles, swathed in linen and pride. Below you, the stable boys, the scullions, the nameless who scrub until their hands bleed. No one crosses the boundaries. The order of things is sacred, sealed by divine right and fear of consequence. Even laughter has rank here. A lord may laugh freely. A servant laughs only when the lord allows it. You carry a basket of folded linen through the gallery, careful not to let your shoes echo too loudly. The walls are lined with tapestry scenes of saints, battles, and mythical beasts. Their colors glow dimly in the weak daylight, hiding stains of damp beneath. Above, the rafters drip from the last night's rain. You think about how beauty and decay live side by side here, as they always have. The castle is magnificent and rotting at once, like an empire at the height of its power. In the great hall, preparations are underway for a small feast. The steward, a sharp-eyed man in a wool doublet, oversees every detail. Servants carry flagons of ale, slabs of venison, loaves of bread. You move among them, unseen but essential. The table gleams with pewter plates, polished until they reflect the torches like tiny suns. To an outsider, this might look like splendor. To you, it is another performance of survival. The lord sits in his backed chair, his wife beside him, pale and watchful. Their faces betray no emotion. Conversation flows, but every word is weighed. Politics rules even the dining table. You hear whispers of border disputes, of the king's taxes, of a nearby baron accused of treason. The lord gestures idly with his knife, its tip glinting in the firelight. Power, you realize, is not loud. It is quiet, deliberate, and deadly. As you pour wine into the goblets, a drop spills onto the tablecloth. It's barely visible, but the steward's gaze catches it. His glance is enough. Later, you'll be made to scrub the floor twice over for your carelessness. In the castle, mistakes are never forgotten. Discipline is as much a part of life as prayer. Outside the hall, the lower courtyard hums with activity. You hear the clang of the forge, the bray of donkeys, the rhythmic chop of the woodcutter's axe. Children run errands barefoot through the mud. The smell of manure mixes with the sweetness of baking bread. It's a world in menorah society within walls, each soul locked into place by duty. You pass the stables, where the grooms brush the lord's horses until their coats shine like bronze. The animals live better than many servants. Their stalls are warm, their feed fresh. In contrast, the castle workers sleep in corners, closets, and drafty chambers, often sharing space with rodents. Disease spreads quickly in such close quarters, coughs, fevers, boils. The healer visits daily with his pouch of herbs, but there's only so much he can do. The air itself feels sick. Later, in the afternoon, you carry a message to the chapel. Inside, the air is cool and still. You pause by the altar, where wax drips slowly down the candles, pooling like frozen tears. The priest chants softly in Latin, his voice echoing through the vaulted stone. He doesn't notice you at first, lost in the rhythm of prayer. Faith is the heartbeat of the castle. Every fear, every injustice, is soothed with promises of heaven and warnings of hell. You think of the peasants who work the fields beyond the moat. They too are told that obedience brings salvation. But inside these walls, faith feels more like control. The Lord's authority is said to come from God himself, and so disobedience is sin. The priest reinforces it, reminding everyone that suffering is the price of eternal grace. As dusk falls, the feast begins. Music fills the holutes and drums, the thin wail of a flute. The guests laugh, their faces flushed with wine. You stand behind them, silent, invisible, watching as the torches flicker against the walls. Their joy feels distant, almost unreal. You can smell the roasted meat, hear the crackle of the fire, feel the tremor of the music beneath your feet. Yet none of it belongs to you. When the feast ends, the scraps are gathered. The dogs fight over bones. You and the other servants sit in the kitchen afterward, eating what remains. The fire burns low, painting your faces with shifting light. Someone hums a quiet tune, and for a fleeting moment, the castle feels human again. But even this small comfort is fleeting. The bell soon rings for curfew, and the world above demands silence once more. You climb to your corner beneath the stairs, the air thick with the day's exhaustion. Above you, the nobles sleep behind locked doors, guarded by steel and prayer. You, meanwhile, are left with your thoughts, the only thing that truly belongs to you. You wonder if those above ever think of those below, if they feel the same cold, the same ache in their bones, or if the walls have turned them into something else entirely, creatures of stone and silence, molded by privilege and fear. As you drift toward uneasy sleep, a sound breaks the stillness, not the wind this time, not the creak of wood or the whisper of rain. It's a cry from somewhere deep within the castle, faint, desperate, quickly smothered. You hold your breath, listening. But soon, the silence swallows it whole. Whatever it was, no one will speak of it tomorrow. You wake to the cold again, but something feels different. The castle's rhythm, its endless procession of bells, footsteps, and whispers, moves, as always. Yet there's a tension in the air today. The servants' eyes avoid one another. The steward's tone is sharper than usual. And somewhere, deep below the stone floors, the echo of that cry from last night still lingers in your thoughts like smoke that refuses to fade. The morning light struggles to enter the castle. The narrow windows admit only slivers of grey, turning everything dim and colourless. You walk through the corridor with a basin of water, its surface trembling with each step. The walls here are colder, the floor damp. Below your feet lies the undercroft, the hidden belly of the castle. Few go down there willingly, except the guards or those with something to hide. By mid-morning, the Lord calls for a private council. You're told to prepare the solar, lighting the candles and laying out bread and ale. As the men gather, their voices drop to whispers. You catch only fragments: rebellion in the Shire, a stolen ledger, punishment before sundown. You keep your head bowed and your face blank, pretending not to hear. In a place like this, curiosity is a dangerous thing. When the council ends, the Lord's temper fills the hall like thunder. His boots strike the flagstones as he descends, cloak flaring behind him. The steward follows, grim-faced. Word spreads quickly. A boy, a kitchen servant, was caught stealing bread from the storeroom. In another world, it would be a small sin. Here, it is treason against the order of things. By noon, the courtyard fills with uneasy silence. The punishment is swift. You are forced to watch. The boy kneels, trembling, before the Lord. His mother, a scullery maid, stands frozen nearby, her hands pressed to her mouth. No one dares to speak. The whip cracks once, twice, then again. The sound slices through the air like a blade. You look away, but you cannot block the noise, the sound of stone and flesh meeting the muffled sob. When it ends, the boy is dragged to the gatehouse to recover, though you know few ever truly do. The servants disperse in silence, each returning to their work as if nothing happened. This is how life continues in a castle, pain absorbed into routine. The walls remember, even when the people pretend not to. Later, you're sent to the cellars to fetch a jug of ale. The descent feels endless. The stairs twist downward, slick with moss, until the air turns cool and sour. Down here, the castle changes. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, mold, and iron. Rats scurry across the stones, their eyes catching the candlelight like tiny sparks. You hear dripping water, the slow heartbeat of the castle's buried veins. Beyond the wine barrels lies another Dorian-banded Huffrotten. You've seen it before, but never dared to open it. They say it leads to the old dungeons, long abandoned after the last siege. Some say ghosts still linger there, prisoners who died chained to the walls. But today, you hear something faint from beyond it, a sigh, or maybe just the wind snaking through cracks in the mortar. You step closer. The air grows colder still. Your candle flickers, and instinct tells you to turn back. But the curiosity burns too bright. You push the door slightly. It groans in protest, revealing a narrow stair spiraling deeper into darkness. The air smells of rust and old blood. You glimpse chains embedded in the wall, an overturned bucket, and something carved into the stone, a series of names, scratched by desperate hands. You can barely read them, but they speak of fear, of time stretched into eternity. You retreat quickly, the echo of your footsteps chasing you up the stairs. When you reach the kitchen again, the warmth of the fire feels foreign, almost wrong. You tell no one what you saw. In the castle, secrets aren't meant to be shared, they're meant to be buried. As evening falls, the great hall fills once more. The lord and his household dine while musicians play. The laughter sounds hollow, forced. You move among them with trays of roasted fowl and bread, watching the light from the torches shimmer against the silver goblets. No one speaks of the punishment earlier that day. No one mentions the cries that echoed from below. The castle erases its own sins as easily as footprints in mud. But the silence between the music feels heavier now, as if the walls themselves carry guilt. You notice the lady of the castle glancing often toward the door, her hands trembling slightly as she raises her cup. Her gaze meets yours for the briefest moment, a flicker of humanity, perhaps fear. Then she looks away, and the illusion of peace resumes. After the feast, you follow the steward to the upper chambers. The torchlight dances on the stairwell walls, throwing shadows that look almost human. He orders you to clean the solar again, muttering about spilled wine. But when you enter, the room is spotless. The air smells faintly of incense, sweet and sickly. Something has happened here, but you are not meant to know. Later, when the castle settles into sleep, you lie awake on your straw bed, the candlelight trembling beside you. The night feels alive. You hear the creak of distant doors, the echo of soft steps above. Someone is moving long after curfew. You hold your breath, straining to listen, but the sounds fade into the stone. And then, faintly, the cry returns to after this time, like the memory of pain. It comes from deep below, from the dungeons perhaps, or from the walls themselves. You close your eyes, and the castle breathes again. Only now, you begin to understand. This fortress was never built to protect its people. It was built to contain them. But by morning, something or someone will vanish without a trace. The winter deepens. The castle stones, once cool in summer, now bite with cold that seeps into your bones. Fires burn low, and every breath escapes in a mist. You wrap yourself in wool and fur, but the chill feels alive, creeping through the cracks of doors and arrow slits. You hear it moaning at night, like the sound of ghosts. In the great hall, nobles feast by roaring flames, their laughter echoing. But behind them, servants stand motionless, shivering, waiting for scraps of meat or bread crusts to be thrown their way. Life here is not warmth, it is endurance. Even the richest shiver, for no amount of gold can change the laws of stone and wind. Outside, the courtyard turns to ice. Horses stamp and snort, their breath steaming in the dim light. Stable boys chip frozen water from troughs, their fingers bleeding from cold. The smell of dung and frost mixes in the air. Beyond the walls, peasants huddle in huts with thatched roofs heavy with snow. The lord's castle looms above them, its torches glowing faintly like eyes in the dark. You realize this place meant to protect is also a reminder of division. Safety for some, misery for many. You wander the lower passages again, following the path of smoke and echo. Somewhere in the darkness, a whisper of rot and mildew trails you. You pass the dungeon, where prisoners lie chained to walls, slick with moisture. Some are thieves, others are soldiers captured in border wars. You see their faces pale in torchlight, eyes sunken, lips cracked. The stench of human waste burns your throat. A guard laughs softly and tosses a bone into the cell. For company, he says, as rats scurry from the shadows. This is justice in the castle, silent, slow, and cruel. Above you, life continues in rhythm. The bell tolls for prayers at dawn, at noon, at dusk. You kneel beside others in the chapel, your knees pressing against cold stone. Candles flicker in the air, heavy with incense. The priest's Latin chants echo and chants, foreign, powerful. You do not understand the words, but you feel their weight. They remind you of sin, duty, and the invisible order that binds you. To disobey God is to risk damnation. To disobey your Lord is to risk death. So you bow your head, whispering your own small prayer, for warmth, for food, for the strength to survive another day. At night, the castle seems to breathe differently. The music fades, the laughter dies, and the corridors fall silent. You hear distant footsteps, maybe a guard, maybe something else. The flicker of torches casts moving shadows on the wall shapes that seem to shift, alive for a moment, then vanish. Some say the castle remembers, that every scream, every sorrow, every death lingers in its stones. You start to believe it. When the wind howls through the halls, it sounds like the voices of the dead knights fallen in war, servants lost to sickness, children buried in the chapel yard. The next morning, a messenger arrives. His cloak is stiff with frost. He brings word of war. The Lord gathers his men in the courtyard, armor gleaming, horses restless. Trumpets sound and banners flutter in the freezing air. You watch them ride out, hooves thundering, leaving behind wives and mothers with eyes red from tears. The castle becomes quieter still, haunted by absence. Days stretch into weeks. Food grows scarce. The cook begins thinning the stew with more water, and people speak in hushed voices of the men who will never return. Then, one night, the bells ring again, this time not for prayer but for warning. From the tower, flames are seen on the horizon. Raiders, perhaps, or enemy soldiers. Panic ripples through the castle. Gates are barred. Arrows are set to string. The women and children are herded into the keep, the deepest heart of the fortress. You are there too, pressed among frightened faces, the air thick with sweat and fear. You hear the thud of siege stones against walls, the scream of horses, the clash of steel. The castle trembles like a living creature in pain. Hours or maybe days pass. The air grows stale, torches burn low. You can hear faint cries above, muffled through layers of stone. Then silence. A silence so complete it hums in your ears. When the gates finally open, the courtyard is blackened, smoke rising where the stables once stood. Bodies lie twisted in the mud. The Lord is gone, slain or captured. The banners hang torn. Victory or defeated no longer matters. Only survival does. Weeks later, life resumes, but not as before. The walls are repaired, the chapel reconsecrated, and new servants replace the dead. Yet something in the air has changed. The laughter never returns as bright. The music never sounds as pure. You begin to understand. A castle is not built of stone alone, it is built of human endurance. Every brick laid, every meal served, every tear shed becomes part of its foundation. You feel it every time you touch the wall. Cold, unyielding, eternal. In the final days of winter, you stand on the battlements and look out over the land. Snow glitters on distant hills, and smoke curls from the peasants' chimneys below. The world seems peaceful, but you know better. Beneath the calm lies struggle, always struggle. The castle endures because people like you endure within it. You are the unseen spine of its story, the breath that keeps its heart beating through famine, war, and time itself. As the sun sets, the horizon burns gold and crimson, lighting the stone towers like fire. You close your eyes, and the wind brushes your face, cold, clean, and endless. Somewhere in the distance, the church bell tolls again. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that life here was never meant to be easy. It was meant to test you, to shape you, to remind you that behind every legend of knights and kings, there were countless silent souls who bore the weight of the castle's glory. And now, you are one of them. The war ends, but peace feels hollow. You walk through the castle grounds, now scarred and half rebuilt. The courtyard stones bear dark stains that no rain can wash away. The once proud banners are faded, their colours eaten by wind and smoke. You pass by the smithy, its anvil quiet, the fire cold. The sound of the hammer has ceased, and the silence feels heavier than battle. You realize that every stone here carries memory, of hands that built, of cries that echoed, of lives that ended unseen. You move through the great hall once more. The feasting tables are gone, replaced by benches and makeshift beds. A few wounded knights remain, their armor dulled, their faces lined with grief. The healer walks among them, mixing herbs and prayers in equal measure. You help carry water, your hands trembling under its weight. You think of how this hall once rang with laughter, how the chandeliers glittered with candlelight, how nobles feasted while minstrels sang. Now only groans and whispers remain. The castle that once symbolized power now feels like a tomb. Outside, the village rebuilds too. You watch peasants till the frozen soil, their wooden plows cutting into the earth like knives. Children drag bundles of sticks, women mend torn roofs. Life continues because it must. The Lord's heir, barely 15 now, rules, though his eyes hold the fear of a man twice his age. You see him walk the ramparts sometimes, gazing over the lands he scarcely understands. He, too, is trapped, born into duty, chained by lineage. In the castle, even privilege feels like a prison. You begin to understand the truth hidden beneath the legends. The castle was never a place of luxury. It was a machine fortress that consumed human lives to keep itself alive. Every comfort of the Lord depended on someone else's suffering. Every feast was balanced by hunger in the kitchens. Every moment of peace rested upon someone's fear. The walls were built to protect, yes, but they also confined. To live within them was to surrender a piece of your freedom, perhaps even your soul. You recall the stories told by travelers, of knights in shining armor, of noble ladies in silken gowns, of chivalry and courtly love. They sound beautiful when spoken by firelight. But standing here, among the soot and broken beams, you see how far those tales are from truth. Armor rusts, silk rots, love fades beneath the weight of survival. Behind every ballad lies a story of exhaustion, of men who froze on watchtowers, of women who died in childbirth, of children who never saw spring. The songs remember glory, but the stones remember pain. At night, you walk to the chapel once more. The air smells of wax and dust. Candles flicker on cracked altars, casting trembling light on faces carved from stone saints who seem to weep under the weight of centuries. You kneel, not to pray, but to listen. You hear the faint dripping of water, the soft rustle of air through ancient cracks. And then, beneath it all, something else, the quiet rhythm of life still pulsing within the castle. Perhaps it's your own heartbeat reflected in the walls. Perhaps it's the echo of all who came before. You imagine the generations that will follow. The castle will stand long after you are gone. It will change hands, its stones repurposed, its halls filled with new voices. Historians will study its architecture. Tourists will marvel at its towers. They will see it as a monument to an age of romance and bravery. But they will not feel what you feel, the weight of its breath, the sorrow of its silence. They will not know the smell of damp straw, the burn of cold iron, the ache of hunger in a place built for kings. And yet, part of you feels pride. For all its cruelty, the castle also gave you identity. It taught you to endure, to belong to something greater than yourself. Even if that something was flawed, you became part of a story larger than life, a story written not in books, but in stone and sweat and sacrifice. You realized that to live here was to be forgotten, but also to become eternal. Every person who toiled, who suffered, who loved within these walls, left behind something invisible yet indestructible, their essence woven into the very structure of the castle itself. As dawn rises, you climb the highest tower. The horizon glows pale gold, and the mist drifts across the moors like a ghostly sea. Below, the village stirs, smoke rising from chimneys. You hear distant bells, soft and hollow, calling the world to another day. The wind cuts against your face, sharp and clean. You stand there for a moment, feeling both small and infinite. You realize that life in a medieval castle was not just hardship, was the essence of survival in a world that knew no mercy. The stones beneath your feet are cold, but you no longer fear them. They are part of you now. You whisper to them, softly, almost reverently, "We endured," and in that whisper lies the truth of every forgotten life that once echoed through these walls. The truth that beyond all power, beyond all suffering, what truly lasts is endurance itself. The castle stands still, unmoving, timeless. It watches centuries pass, kings rise and fall, wars burn and fade. Its walls will one day crumble, its towers collapse, but the memory of those who lived within will linger, carved not just in stone, but in the very fabric of history. And as the sun climbs higher, painting the sky with light, you turn away from the battlements and walk down the winding stairs, your footsteps joining the eternal rhythm of the castle's heart, steady, unbroken, eternal. And so, as the dawn fades over the ancient ramparts, you realize that the castle was never the fairy tale we were told. It was a world built on endurance, a place where beauty and brutality shared the same breath. Behind every stone arch and candlelit chamber were people who worked, suffered, and loved in silence. They are gone now, their names forgotten, yet their presence still lingers in the cold touch of the walls, in the scent of rain that seeps through the cracks, in the quiet hum of time that never truly stops. Perhaps that is what the past really is, not a collection of grand stories, but a memory of survival. A reminder that beneath the myths of kings and queens, it was the nameless souls who kept the world turning. The castle may have stood for power, but it endures today because of those who lived humbly within it. So the next time you walk through the ruins of an old fortress, close your eyes for a moment. Listen to the whisper of wind along the battlements. You might just hear their echoes, faint but eternal, telling you that they were here and that they endured. If this glimpse into the past moved you, subscribe to Whispers of History and join me next time for another journey through time where every stone still remembers.